The buzz around Walker Kessler is growing louder, and it is not by accident. When a 7-footer with elite rim protection skills voices public frustration about his future, every contender in the NBA should take notice. For the Boston Celtics, the timing could not be more intriguing. Reports highlight that the Utah Jazz big man has not received a contract extension, a decision that is raising more questions than answers. Why would the Jazz hesitate with a young player who has already proven he can anchor a defense? Is this hesitation purely financial, or does it reveal that Utah is more open to trade talks than they want to admit? For the Celtics, this uncertainty could be the crack in the door they have been waiting for. Kessler has already built a reputation as a top-tier shot blocker and interior presence. He is not flashy, but he changes games with defense, something that cannot be said about most players at his age. The Celtics' current rotation at center, while filled with hard workers like Neemias Queta and Xavier Tillman, still leaves one major question lingering. Can this group handle the playoff battles against dominant bigs from the East? What happens if Joel Embiid is on the other side of the floor again? What happens if Giannis Antetokounmpo decides to attack the paint every possession? That is where a player like Kessler suddenly becomes a name too valuable to ignore. And here comes the twist that could shake Boston's decision-making. Kessler's contract is small enough to make a deal realistic. At just under $5 million, he would not require breaking the roster apart. But the real gamble is this: do the Celtics see Kessler as a short-term playoff boost or as a long-term building block? Paying him this summer will not be cheap, and Boston's front office is already walking a financial tightrope. Yet championship windows do not stay open forever. Is saving money worth more than protecting the rim in a Game 7? Kessler himself added fuel to the fire when he admitted his frustration about the lack of extension talks, saying he will keep playing winning basketball as long as I have a Utah Jazz jersey on. That is not the kind of statement that inspires long-term confidence. It sounds like a player already preparing for a different uniform. Could that uniform be green and white? Now, here is the uncomfortable but fascinating part of this debate. If the Celtics stand still and trust Queta to grow into that role, they could be betting on a future that may not arrive in time. Development is a slow process. Banners are not. Fans have seen this movie before, waiting for a young player to take the leap while veterans like Al Horford and Drew Holiday run out of time. Can Boston really afford to wait? There is also a deeper layer nobody wants to talk about. If Kessler does become available and the Celtics pass on him, another contender could swoop in. Imagine the Milwaukee Bucks adding him behind Brook Lopez, or the New York Knicks pairing him with Julius Randle. That is the kind of missed opportunity that could haunt Boston for years. The Boston Celtics are stepping into one of the most unpredictable seasons in recent memory, and while analysts like Zach Lowe are quick to cast doubt, there is an angle they might be ignoring. Could the skepticism itself be fueling one of the most surprising campaigns in Celtics history? Yes, Jason Tatum's injury changed everything. Yes, the core that lifted the championship trophy has been reshaped. But when you strip away the easy headlines, you see something deeper. This is not a roster built to simply survive. This is a roster that could evolve into something far more dangerous than people, like Lowe, are willing to admit. Take Jaylen Brown. Analysts keep circling back to his so-called limitations. Yet how many players in the East have the blend of two-way athleticism, championship experience, and the mental drive that Brown carries into this season? He is not just stepping into Tatum's shoes, he is reshaping what it means to be Boston's centerpiece. The real question is, are critics underestimating how much stronger a player becomes when the entire weight of a franchise rests on his shoulders? Then comes Anthony Simon, the addition nobody can seem to figure out. Hollinger frames him as a contract waiting to be dumped. But what if that is exactly where everyone is wrong? Simons brings a skill set Boston has quietly lacked for years, a backcourt scorer who can create his own shot under pressure. Dismissing him as trade fodder could end up being one of the most short-sighted takes of the season. The Celtics may have landed a piece that allows Brown to flourish rather than falter. Critics like Lowe point to unproven depth, but since when has depth alone been the deciding factor for champions? The NBA playoffs are won by lineups that shorten, rotations that shrink, and stars who step up in the biggest moments. The Celtics do not need a dozen proven veterans. They need 5 players who can execute under pressure. This roster has that potential, even if analysts refuse to see it. Here is where it gets even more controversial. Could it be that the Celtics are deliberately playing a longer game than anyone realizes? By embracing financial caution now, Boston may be setting itself up to pounce on a major opportunity mid-season. Every contender faces injury. Every team eventually looks to shed contracts. And when that happens, the Celtics are perfectly positioned to strike. What happens if a front-court upgrade suddenly becomes available at the trade deadline? Would Lowe still call this a bridge year? Or would he admit that Boston turned patience into power? There is another question few are daring to ask. What if this weakened roster actually gives the Celtics an edge? Opponents may underestimate them, game plan against the ghosts of last year rather than the reality of this year, and that creates openings. History has shown time and again that underdog versions of Boston play with a level of hunger that powerhouse versions sometimes lack. Could this be one of those seasons where the Celtics thrive precisely because no one expects them to? Think about what Boston actually lost this summer. The departure of Al Horford and Luke Kornet stripped the Celtics of something far more valuable than casual fans realize. They did not just lose size, they lost the invisible mechanics that make an elite offense hum. The perfect screen that buys a half step, the short roll read that bends a defense, the subtle positioning that frees a shooter without ever earning credit in the stat sheet. These are the small things that turn playoff possessions into banners. The absence of that hidden layer has analysts convinced Boston's front court is vulnerable. But what if Tillman and Garza are the ones ready to bring it back? Tillman's performance against Memphis was a perfect example of basketball that fools the eye test. 7 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. Forget the numbers. Look at the impact. His timing, his body positioning, his relentless energy all created ripples that carried Boston's offense forward. 3 consecutive first-quarter possessions turned into made baskets because of his screens, his angles, his awareness. Jaylen Brown gets credit for attacking downhill, Derek White for hitting a pull-up 3, but rewind the tape and you see Tillman setting the stage every single time. Is it possible that the most underrated Celtic on the floor is the one without a headline role? Then there was the alley-oop. Nobody expected Tillman to sky above the rim in that fashion. One play will not define his career, but it forces a question. How many people have already underestimated his athletic ceiling? Could he be more than just a glue guy? The curiosity deepens when you notice his 2-man actions with Derek White, including a perfectly timed dribble handoff that opened a corner look for Sam Hauser. That is not the game of a role player trying to survive. That is the game of someone who understands exactly how to make the Celtics machine function. Garza, on the other hand, is a different story, and maybe that is exactly what makes him intriguing. He is not supposed to fit the modern NBA mold, yet in short bursts, his feel for spacing and his footwork inside the arc remind you of a different era of basketball. Could Garza, once seen as a fringe player, carve out a niche as the bruiser Boston secretly needs in a playoff series against an Eastern Conference giant? Imagine a scenario where Garza's size and touch become an unexpected X-factor when opponents are too busy game planning for Brown, White, and Simons. Critics will say Memphis did not bring its full lineup, but that misses the bigger point. Preseason is not about the opponent, it is about the process. Tillman and Garza showed a process Boston can build upon, a process that keeps the pace high while still generating clean looks. The fact that this came from players who were not even expected to be central to the story raises an uncomfortable but fascinating question. Have the Celtics stumbled into front-court solutions that nobody outside their locker room saw coming? And here is where the debate turns even more provocative. If Tillman and Garza continue to grow into these roles, Boston might not need to chase a high-profile big at the trade deadline. Imagine the ripple effect if Brad Stevens decides to keep assets in his pocket, preserving flexibility while trusting internal development. Could this shift the franchise's strategy and force analysts to rethink what weakness actually means? The preseason is supposed to be a quiet warm-up, a chance for coaches to experiment, and for rookies to dip their toes into the water. But on Wednesday night, Boston's Hugo Gonzalez did not just dip his toes. He stormed into the spotlight with a performance that left Memphis embarrassed and forced everyone to wonder if the Celtics might have stolen one of the true gems of the draft. 8 points, 3 rebounds, 3 blocks, 1 steal. Those numbers may look modest, but they are deceptive. What Gonzalez displayed went far beyond the stat sheet. It was his motor, his physicality, his refusal to back down that turned a meaningless preseason matchup into a statement. When a 19-year-old rookie looks fearless in his NBA debut, people should pay attention. The real question now is, did Boston just uncover a future cornerstone that rivals completely overlooked? Gonzalez's path to the NBA is already unique. Coming from Real Madrid, he was schooled in a patient, tactical system where ball movement and precision ruled. But the NBA is chaos at full speed, a sprinting chess match where hesitation kills. Most rookies from Europe take months, sometimes years, to catch up. Gonzalez, he looked like he belonged from the opening tip. Could it be that his energy and defensive instincts are not just traits, but the very qualities that accelerate his adaptation faster than anyone anticipated? Watch the tape. His chase-down block on Javon Small was not just hustle, it was a message. His denial of Cedric Coward, the 11th overall pick, was not just defense, it was dominance. His refusal to be rattled when PJ Hall shoved him was not just composure, it was defiance. Gonzalez did not come to survive preseason minutes. He came to dictate them, and here is where it gets even more provocative. Boston's roster already boasts elite wings in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, not to mention the scoring punch of Anthony Simons. Where does a 19-year-old rookie fit into that crowded picture? The easy answer is nowhere. But what if Gonzalez forces his way in? What if his defense, his energy, and his relentless motor make him impossible to ignore? Could Joe Mazzulla find himself with a rotation problem? Not because he lacks options, but because a rookie is demanding more playing time than anyone expected. Fans might not realize it yet, but Gonzalez's traits fill a void that has haunted Boston for years. The Celtics have been elite offensively, but there have been stretches where energy dipped, where second-unit effort fell short. Gonzalez plays like someone allergic to standing still, diving on the floor, chasing rebounds, flying into passing lane. That type of hunger is contagious. Could this rookie's intensity become the spark that lifts veterans during grueling stretches of the season? Even more tantalizing is the long-term vision. Gonzalez is not built like a traditional wing. His 6'6" frame, 6'7" wingspan, and wiry strength allow him to guard multiple positions. He is not locked into one box. He is a matchup problem in the making. Imagine him evolving into the kind of defender who can switch onto guards, harass shooters, and still hold his ground against bigger wings. If that potential becomes reality, Boston may have secured the defensive anchor of its next era without even realizing it on draft night. Here is the curiosity that will drive debates all season. Was this debut just the adrenaline of a rookie desperate to prove himself? Or was it the first glimpse of a player who will redefine Boston's depth chart by the All-Star break? Analysts will point to his age, his inexperience, his adjustment period. But effort has no adjustment period, and Gonzalez already has the one trait that every championship team craves. He plays like every possession matters,